There are nights when the present feels thin, and you find yourself reaching back towards something older and steadier. Long before clinics, before prescriptions, before the word medicine meant a bottle on a shelf, healing once had an address. It was a temple, and the sick who came to it were not told to take anything. They were told to sleep and to dream. How did the ancient world try to heal through dreams? The strange part is what the records say. People arrived carrying blindness, paralysis, wounds that would not close. And after a single night of sleep in a sacred hall, the inscriptions describe them walking out whole. Welcome to sleepy science. Tonight we move quietly through the long history of that practice. The temples of sleep and the rituals of the dreaming cure. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're where the ancient world came to sleep and heal. Let your mind soften now. And now we begin. For thousands of years, the most common prescription for serious illness was not a drug, but a night of sleep in a holy place. The Greeks called it enkoimesis, the Romans incubatio, from the Latin meaning to lie down upon. A sick person would travel to a temple, perform certain rituals, then sleep within its walls, hoping a god would visit them in a dream and either heal them or tell them what to do. This was not a fringe belief. It was mainstream medicine, practiced across the ancient Mediterranean for more than 1,000 years. The question of how the ancient world tried to heal through dreams begins here, in the radical idea that sleep itself could be a doorway to recovery. The most famous of these healing temples belonged to Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine. In myth, he was the son of Apollo, raised and taught by a wise centaur named Chiron, who knew the secrets of herbs and healing. Asclepius became so skilled that, according to the stories, he could even raise the dead. His symbol was a staff with a single serpent coiled around it, an image still used by medical organizations today. The temples dedicated to him were called Asclepieia, and they spread across the Greek world like a network of ancient hospitals. People did not go to them only to pray. They went to sleep, to dream, and to wait for the god to arrive in the quiet of the night. The grandest of all these sanctuaries stood at Epidaurus, in the northeastern Peloponnese of Greece. By the 4th century before the Common Era, it had grown into a vast complex of temples, dormitories, baths, and treatment halls, drawing the sick from across the Mediterranean. It was not a gloomy place of suffering. It had gardens, fresh springs, and one of the most beautiful theaters ever built, famous even now for acoustics so perfect that a whisper on the stage can be heard from the highest seats. The ancients understood something we sometimes forget. Healing was not only about the body. It involved beauty, calm, rest, and a sense of being somewhere set apart from the ordinary anxious world. At the heart of each Asclepieion was a special building where the actual dreaming took place. The Greeks called it the abaton, which means the place not to be entered, or sometimes the enkoimeterion, the sleeping hall. Only those who had completed the proper preparations were allowed inside. There, on simple couche, the sick would lie down for the night, often after days of cleansing and ritual. The room was kept quiet and dim. The patient was meant to surrender, to let go of waking thought, and to enter sleep with one hope held gently in mind, that the god would come. Everything in the temple's design pointed toward this single, sacred night of rest. Before a patient could sleep in the abaton, they had to prepare, sometimes for days. The first step was purification. They would bathe in the sacred springs, washing away not only dirt, but the symbolic stains of ordinary life. They might fast, abstaining from certain foods or from wine. They would make offerings, perhaps a cake, a coin, or eventually an animal sacrifice. All of this was meant to make the person ready, to quiet the mind and open it. We might see these steps as superstition, but they served a real purpose. They slowed a person down. They built anticipation. By the time the patient finally lay down to sleep, their entire being had been pointed toward the possibility of being healed. Snakes moved freely through the healing temples, and far from being feared, they were welcomed as sacred. The species most associated with Asclepius was a gentle, non-venomous climbing snake, now known as the Asclepian snake. These creatures were allowed to glide through the dormitories where patients slept, to wake and feel a smooth, cool body moving near you might sound terrifying, but to the ancient mind, it was a blessing. The snake was the god's own animal, a being that shed its skin and seemed to be reborn, a living symbol of renewal. A dream of a snake, or the touch of one in the night, was taken as a sign that Asclepius himself had drawn near. The inscriptions at Epidaurus give us a rare window into what patients believed happened during these nights. Carved into stone tablets called the Iamata, meaning the healings, are dozens of testimonials describing cures. They read almost like ancient case files, though written in the language of miracle. One tells of a man blind in one eye who dreamed the god poured medicine into it and woke able to see. Another describes a woman who had been pregnant for years, who dreamed and then gave birth. These were displayed publicly, meant to inspire faith in arriving pilgrims. Whether or not we believe the cures, the tablets prove how deeply real this practice was to the people who lived it. In the dreams themselves, the god could appear in many forms. Sometimes Asclepius came as a bearded, kindly man, gentle and reassuring, who might touch the afflicted part of the body or speak soothing words. Sometimes he sent his sacred animals instead, a snake or a dog, to lick a wound or press against the sick. And sometimes the dream was not a cure at all, but a prescription, a set of instructions. The god might tell the patient to take certain herbs, to exercise, to change their diet, or to bathe in particular waters. In the morning, the temple priests would help interpret what the sleeper had seen, turning the dream into a plan for recovery. The priests of these temples were not passive observers. They were skilled interpreters, custodians of a long tradition of reading dreams. When a patient woke, they would describe what they had seen, and the priest would help translate the often strange and symbolic images into meaning. A dream of a journey might mean one thing, a dream of water another. This was a craft passed down across generations. The priests also kept the temple running, managed the rituals, cared for the sacred animals, and likely offered practical advice drawn from long experience watching the sick. In this blending of dream and practical care, we can see the faint outline of what would later become the profession of medicine. By this point, a pattern is already emerging. The ancient healing dream was never only about the supernatural. It was wrapped in preparation, in setting, in expectation, and in the gentle guidance of experienced caretakers. Even if no god ever truly walked into the abaton, the people who slept there were undergoing something powerful, a deliberate, structured experience designed to shift their state of mind and body toward recovery. The temples understood, perhaps without knowing the science, that the conditions around a sick person matter enormously. They built entire institutions around the simple, profound idea that hope, rest, and ritual could change the course of an illness. The roots of dream healing reach back even further than Greece, into the older civilization of Egypt. The Egyptians had a deep and ancient relationship with dreams, believing them to be messages from the gods or glimpses into other realms. They built sanctuaries where people could come to sleep and seek divine guidance, and they kept detailed records of what dreams might mean. One papyrus, written more than 3,000 years ago, contains a long catalogue of dreams paired with their interpretations, a kind of ancient dream dictionary. To dream of certain things was good, of others bad. This Egyptian tradition of taking dreams seriously, of treating them as a source of knowledge and healing, helped lay the foundation for the temple practices that followed. A central figure in Egyptian healing was a man named Imhotep, who lived around 2600 before the Common Era. He was not born a god. He was a real person, an architect and advisor who designed the famous step pyramid at Saqqara. But over the centuries, his reputation grew so vast that he was eventually worshipped as a god of medicine and wisdom. Temples were dedicated to him, and the sick came to them seeking healing dreams, much as the Greeks would later visit Asclepius. In fact, the Greeks themselves came to identify Imhotep with Asclepius. Here we see how the dreaming cure traveled and merged across cultures, the same underlying practice wearing different names in different lands. The Egyptians had a special god connected to sleep and dreams in the home, a strange and beloved figure named Bes. Unlike the tall, serene gods of Egyptian temples, Bes was short, with a wide face and a fierce expression, often shown sticking out his tongue. He was a protector, especially of households, children, and sleepers. Egyptians sometimes slept on headrests or near images of Bes, hoping he would guard them through the night and ward off bad dreams. There were even special beds and chambers, sometimes called Bes chambers, associated with seeking good dreams. Long before any temple of Asclepius, ordinary people were already turning to the divine for protection and guidance in the vulnerable hours of sleep. In ancient Mesopotamia, the lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, dreams were treated as serious matters of state and survival. Kings consulted dream interpreters before going to war or undertaking great projects. The Mesopotamians believed dreams could carry warnings or instructions from the gods, and they developed extensive written guides for understanding them. They had a goddess associated with dreams, and a spirit thought to carry dream messages. To receive a meaningful dream, a person might sleep in a temple or sacred space. deliberately seeking contact with the divine. This idea that one could go to a holy place and intentionally invite a guiding dream is the same deep impulse that would later fill the healing temples of the Greek world. One of the most striking things about these traditions is how widespread they were. From the river valleys of Mesopotamia to the temples of the Nile to the sanctuaries of Greece, peoples who had little contact with one another all arrived at a similar conviction. Sleep was not merely rest. It was a threshold, a place where the human and the divine could meet. Across vast distances and many centuries, the same idea kept appearing, that a dream might carry healing or truth. This is not the kind of belief that spreads only by copying. It seems to rise again and again from something deep in human experience, from the strange and vivid power of the dreaming mind itself. When the Greeks built their Asclepieia, they did not place them anywhere convenient. The sanctuaries were often set in beautiful, natural locations, near fresh springs, on hillsides, surrounded by trees and open air. This was deliberate. The ancients believed that the qualities of a place affected the body and spirit. Clean water, calm surroundings, and pleasant air were thought to support healing. Modern medicine has rediscovered the same truth. That environment shapes recovery. That natural light, quiet, and green spaces can ease the body's stress. The temple builders intuited this thousands of years ago, choosing settings that would soothe the frightened, suffering person before they ever lay down to sleep. The journey to a healing temple was itself part of the cure. Many patients traveled long distances, sometimes over days or weeks, to reach a famous sanctuary like Epidaurus. This journey required commitment. It pulled the sick person out of their ordinary surroundings and routines, away from the home where they had been suffering, and toward a place charged with hope. By the time they arrived, they had already invested enormous effort and expectation into the experience. Psychologists today understand how much such commitment can shape outcomes. The very difficulty of the pilgrimage made the destination feel more powerful and made the patient more ready to believe that something real would happen when they finally arrived. The temples did not rely on dreams alone. Around the sleeping halls grew a whole supporting culture of care. There were baths and exercise areas, dietary guidance, and the use of herbs and ointments. Patients might stay for extended periods, following regimens prescribed through their dreams or by the priests. In this sense, the Asclepieia functioned somewhat like early hospitals or spas, offering a complete environment of treatment rather than a single magic moment. The dream was the centerpiece, the sacred heart of the experience, but it sat within a broader practice of rest, cleansing, and gentle physical care. The healing was layered, combining the spiritual with the practical in ways that reinforced each other. We have a rare first-hand account of temple healing from a man named Aristides, a Greek orator who lived in the 2nd century of the Common Era. Plagued by chronic illness for much of his life, he spent years connected to the great Asclepius at Pergamum, and he wrote a detailed work describing his dreams and the treatments the god prescribed. Through his pages, we can hear an actual ancient patient speaking about his experience, his fevers, his hopes, the strange instructions he received in sleep, sometimes to bathe in cold rivers, sometimes to fast, His writings are intimate and obsessive, and they reveal just how completely a person could give their life over to the guidance of healing dreams. The instructions received in temple dreams were sometimes unexpectedly practical and physical. Patients were told to walk, to run, to ride horses, to abstain from certain foods, to bathe in cold water or warm. While framed as divine commands, many of these prescriptions resemble sensible advice, encouraging exercise, rest, hygiene, and moderation. The God, it seems, often recommended exactly the kinds of healthy behaviors that a wise physician might suggest. This raises a fascinating possibility. The dreaming mind, shaped by the temple's atmosphere and the patient's own buried knowledge, may have been generating reasonable guidance. Dressed in the authority of the sacred, the dream gave permission and conviction to do what the body already needed. Not everyone who came to the temples was cured, and the ancients knew this. The inscriptions celebrate successes, but failure was always possible. Some patients dreamed nothing at all on their first night and had to try again. Others received dreams they could not understand, or instructions that did not help. The temples did not promise certainty. What they offered was a structured path toward hope, a framework within which healing might occur. This honesty, woven quietly into the practice, is part of what made it endure. People did not expect magic every time. They came to participate in something larger than themselves, accepting that the outcome rested partly with the God and partly with their own readiness. The healing temples were also social places, full of other sufferers. A patient lying in the abaton was surrounded by others who had come for the same reason, who had made the same journey and held the same hope. There was comfort in this shared experience, a sense of not being alone in one's affliction. The testimonials carved on the walls, the stories told by those who had been cured, the presence of priests and fellow pilgrims, all created an atmosphere thick with expectation and mutual support. Modern medicine increasingly recognizes how powerful community affects healing. The temples surrounded the sick not with isolation, but with a community of belief. And that surrounding mattered. As the centuries passed, the cult of Asclepius spread far beyond Greece. When a terrible plague struck Rome in 293 before the Common Era, the Romans, following an oracle, sent for the god. According to the legend, a sacred snake from Epidaurus boarded their ship, and when it reached Rome, it slipped onto an island in the Tiber River. There the Romans built a temple to Asclepius, their name for the god, and that island remained associated with healing for centuries. Remarkably, a hospital still stands on that same island today. The dreaming cure had become an empire-wide institution, carried on the back of a snake across the sea, and rooted in places that remain places of healing even now. The temples thrived for an extraordinarily long time, far longer than most institutions in human history. For well over 1,000 years, from the early Greek sanctuaries through the height of the Roman Empire, people continued to seek healing through sacred sleep. Generations were born, lived, and died believing in the power of the temple dream. This endurance tells us something worth noticing. A practice does not survive for a millennium unless people genuinely experience it as helpful. Whatever was truly happening in those dim sleeping halls, enough patients walked away feeling better that the tradition renewed itself, century after century, drawing the suffering towards sleep as a path back to wholeness. So we return to our question, now seen more clearly. How did the ancient world try to heal through dreams, not by accident, and not through a single trick, but through a vast, careful, deliberate system? They built beautiful temples, prepared the sick with purification and ritual, surrounded them with calm and community, and then asked them to do the most natural thing of all, to sleep. What we have seen so far is the outer shape of the practice, its templars, its chods, its rituals. But the deeper questions remain. What was actually happening inside those sleeping minds? And why did so many wake, believing they were healed? That is where the next part of our journey begins. The mind's oldest stories have been soft so far, and more are waiting just ahead. Perhaps this gentle space brings you comfort, and a quiet subscribe helps another restless mind find it too. Now, breathe with us, one sleepy soul at a time. Right now, in the dark behind your eyes, images are already beginning to form on their own, the way they did for every sleeper in those ancient halls. You don't have to summon them. You don't have to understand them. They arrived the same way they arrived 2,000 years ago, in the quiet space where waking thought lets go. The question that just opened, about what was truly happening inside those dreaming minds, is not only a question about the past. It is happening in you, right now, as your own mind prepares to drift. Notice your breath, slow and unhurried. The next part of the story begins to move toward an answer. Now we continue. To understand what may have happened in the temples, we have to look closely at what the dreaming brain actually does. For most of history, dreams were a mystery beyond science. But in the last several decades, researchers have learned to watch the sleeping brain at work, and what they have found is illuminating. Sleep is not a blank shutdown. It is an active, organized process, with distinct stages, each doing different work. During certain stages, the brain becomes intensely active, weaving images and stories, processing the day, and tending to the body. The ancients could not measure any of this, yet they sensed that something quietly restorative was unfolding in the night. The most vivid dreaming happens during a stage called rapid eye movement sleep, often shortened to its initials. During this phase, the eyes dart beneath closed lids. The brain lights up with activity nearly as intense as waking. And the most narrative, emotional dreams unfold. Yet the body lies almost completely still, its muscles temporarily relaxed into a kind of protective paralysis. This is the strange theater in which dreams play out. A mind fully alive inside a body at rest. When the temple sleepers described their nighttime visions of the god, they were almost certainly describing experiences born in this stage, the brain's own deep and ancient capacity for vivid, story-filled dreaming. One of the most valuable things sleep does is help the body heal and defend itself. During deep sleep, the immune system becomes more active. releasing substances that fight infection and inflammation. Growth and repair processes accelerate. Wounds mend faster in those who sleep well. This is not mysticism. It is measurable biology. So when an ancient patient slept soundly for a night, or several nights, in the calm of a temple, their body genuinely had a better chance to repair itself. They were away, at last, from the stress and broken rest of ordinary life. The sacred sleep may have healed in part simply because it was, at last, real and restful sleep. Many of the people who came to the temples were likely exhausted, anxious, and sleep-deprived by their illnesses and worries. Chronic poor sleep weakens the body in countless ways, raising stress hormones, dampening immunity, and clouding the mind. Now imagine such a person finally arriving somewhere safe and beautiful, cared for, surrounded by hope, and given permission to rest deeply. The simple recovery of good sleep alone could produce profound improvements in how they felt. What looked like a miraculous overnight cure might sometimes have been the profound relief of a depleted body and mind getting, at last, the rest they had been starving for. There is a concept in modern medicine that helps explain much of what happened in the temples, and it is one of the most fascinating in all of science. It is the power of expectation, often called the placebo effect. When a person truly believes they are receiving a powerful treatment, their body can respond in real, physical ways, releasing natural painkillers, calming inflammation, easing symptoms. This is not imagination or pretending. It produces measurable changes in the brain and body. The temples were, in a sense, magnificent engines of expectation. Everything about them, the journey, the ritual, the beauty, the God, was designed to make the patient believe completely that healing was at hand. The placebo response is strongest when belief is deepest and when the surrounding ritual is most elaborate. Researchers have found that an impressive ceremony, a confident healer, and a meaningful setting all amplify the effect. A treatment that involves more steps, more sensory richness, more authority, tends to produce stronger responses. By this measure, the ancient temples were almost perfectly designed to maximize healing through expectation. The long pilgrimage, the purifying baths, the sacred snakes, the dream of a god himself, all combined to create one of the most powerful belief-generating experiences a human being could undergo. The ancients had stumbled, through intuition and tradition, onto a genuine and potent force. Stress and anxiety can make almost any illness worse, and relief from them can bring real improvement. When we are frightened and tense, our bodies pour out stress hormones that strain the heart, disturb digestion, suppress immunity, and amplify pain. The temple experience was, among other things, a profound system for reducing fear. The patient was told that a kindly God would care for them, that others had been cured, that they were now in a sacred and protected place. As that fear melted away, the body's stress response would have quieted. Pain might ease. Sleep would deepen, and the whole system could shift from a state of alarm toward one of repair. The relationship between the patient and the healer has always been a powerful medicine in its own right. In the temples, the priests embodied calm authority and care, and the god represented the ultimate compassionate healer. Feeling genuinely cared for, listened to, and attended to by someone you trust produces measurable benefits, easing pain and supporting recovery. This is sometimes called the care effect, and it remains one of the most underappreciated forces in medicine. The ancient sufferer, received with attention and warmth into the embrace of the temple, was experiencing this healing relationship in concentrated form. They were not processed as a case. They were welcomed as a soul in need. Dreams have a special quality that may have made them especially effective as instruments of healing. A dream feels real. It is experienced directly, vividly, from the inside, not described by someone else but lived. When an ancient patient dreamed that the god touched their blind eyes or healed their withered limb, they did not merely hear a promise of healing. They felt it happen. That direct, embodied experience could have a far more powerful effect on belief and on the body than any spoken assurance. The dream made the cure personal and undeniable. The mind, having vividly experienced healing, could then begin to manifest some of its effects in the waking body. The brain in sleep is unusually open to suggestion and to reshaping emotion. As we drift towards sleep and dream, the rigid boundaries of waking logic loosen. The judging, doubting mind grows quiet. In this softened state, ideas and images can take hold more deeply than they would in the skeptical light of day. The temples placed their suggestion, the certainty of the god's healing, directly into this open and receptive condition. A patient who fell asleep with their whole being focused on the hope of a cure was, in effect, planting that hope in the most fertile soil the mind ever offers. That soil is the threshold between waking and dreaming. There is growing evidence that sleep, and especially dreaming sleep, helps us process and soften difficult emotions. During the night, the brain seems to revisit the day's emotional experiences, replaying them in a calmer chemical environment, gradually stripping away some of their sharpness. We often wake feeling that a problem has lost some of its sting, that we can face it more steadily. For ancient patients burdened by fear, grief, and the emotional weight of illness, a night of deep, dreaming sleep in a place of safety could have quietly eased that burden. They might have woken not only rested, but emotionally lighter, more able to hope, more able to heal. Many of the ailments that brought people to the temples were likely conditions strongly influenced by the mind and by stress. Throughout history, and still today, a significant portion of physical complaints, pain, paralysis, digestive trouble, and more, are shaped or worsened by psychological distress. Such conditions are precisely the ones most likely to respond to a powerful experience of hope, calm, and expectation. This does not mean the suffering was not real. It was entirely real. But it means the temple's tools, belief, rest, and the easing of fear, were well matched to a meaningful share of the troubles people carried through their doors, and could produce genuine relief. The act of interpreting the dream the next morning added another layer of healing. When the patient described their vision to the priest, and the priest translated it into meaning and guidance, The experience was given shape and purpose. A confusing illness became a story with direction. The patient left not with uncertainty, but with a plan. A sense that they understood what was happening and what to do. This transformation, from helpless confusion to meaningful narrative, is itself therapeutic. Feeling that our suffering has meaning, and that there is a clear path forward, reduces despair and supports recovery. The temple did not only offer a dream, it offered a story to live by. The temples also functioned as repositories of practical medical knowledge, accumulated over centuries of watching the sick. The priests and attendants saw thousands of patients across their lives and the lives of their predecessors. They learned what tended to help, which herbs eased, which symptoms, what regimens of diet and exercise supported recovery. This hard-won experience could be woven into the dream prescriptions and the surrounding care. So, alongside the spiritual machinery of expectation and belief, there was often genuine, observation-based guidance at work. The temples blended the mystical and the empirical, and the combination may have been more effective than either alone would have been. Step back, and a richer picture comes into view. The ancient dreaming cure was not one thing, but many forces braided together. Real rest and real sleep healing the body. The powerful biology of expectation and belief. The easing of fear and stress. The medicine of feeling cared for. The emotional processing of dreaming sleep. The meaning given by interpretation. And the practical wisdom of long experience. No single explanation accounts for the temple's success. Their power came from the way all these elements reinforced one another, woven into a single, immersive experience. The ancients built, without our science, an unusually complete approach to healing the whole suffering person. There's a quietness settling in now. The same hush that filled those temple halls when the lamps were lowered and the sleepers grew still. Take a gentle breath. Feel the weight of your body, resting and held. We're wandering together through the long human story of sleep and healing, in no hurry to arrive anywhere. We'll keep going, slowly. As the practice of temple healing matured, it began to influence the birth of rational medicine itself. The island of Kos, home to a famous Asclepian, is also remembered as the place associated with Hippocrates, often called the father of Western medicine. Whether or not he trained directly within the temple, the world of healing he emerged from was steeped in the Asclepian tradition. Over time, a more observational, less supernatural approach to illness grew up alongside the temples, watching symptoms carefully and seeking natural causes. The dreaming cure and the dawning science of medicine were not enemies, but neighbors, sharing the same sacred ground, each shaping the other across the centuries. The temples gradually accumulated something like clinical records, in the form of the carved testimonials and the priests' growing knowledge. Each cure that was inscribed, each prescription that seemed to work, added to a collective memory of what helped. This slow gathering of cases, even wrapped in the language of miracle, shares a kinship with the scientific habit of learning from accumulated experience. The ancients were, in their own way, paying attention to outcomes, noticing patterns, remembering what tended to succeed. Buried inside the religious practice was a quiet thread of empirical learning, the same impulse that would one day grow into the systematic study of medicine. The healing dream was never limited to physical ailments. People also came seeking guidance for troubles of the heart and mind, for grief, for fear, for difficult decisions. The temple dream could offer comfort, direction, and a sense of divine attention to those suffering not in body, but in spirit. In this, the ancient practice touched something we now associate with psychology and counseling. To bring one's inner turmoil to a sacred place, to sleep on it, and to wake with a sense of guidance, is a deeply human way of seeking peace. The temples served the whole person, the aching body and the troubled soul alike. The settings of the temples often included theatres, and this was no mere entertainment. The Greeks understood that powerful emotional experiences could be cleansing and healing. Watching a great drama, feeling pity and fear and release, was thought to purify the emotions, a process they called catharsis. At a sanctuary like Epidaurus, the patient might attend a performance as part of their stay, moving through strong feelings in the company of others before lying down to sleep. The combination of art, emotion, beauty, and rest created a complete environment for renewal. The temples treated the soul through experience, not only through the dream itself, but through everything that surrounded it. The dreaming cure spread and adapted as it traveled, taking on local color in each place it reached. In some regions, it merged with existing traditions of healing and prophecy. In others, it absorbed new gods and new rituals. This flexibility was a source of its strength. Rather than imposing a single rigid form, the practice could meet people within their own beliefs and customs, always centered on the same central act of seeking healing through sacred sleep. Like a river adapting to the land it flows through, the tradition of the healing dream shaped itself to many cultures while keeping its deep current intact. It carried the same hope from shore to distant shore. The endurance of the practice was tied to its honesty about uncertainty. The temples never claimed to cure everyone, and this very humility made them more believable. People understood that the god might or might not come, that a dream might or might not heal. This left room for the practice to absorb failures without collapsing. When a cure did not happen, it could be attributed to insufficient preparation or to the god's mysterious will, rather than discrediting the whole tradition. This built-in flexibility allowed the dreaming cure to survive across more than 1,000 years, weathering every disappointment without losing the faith of the suffering who kept coming. As the Roman Empire embraced Christianity, the old temples of Asclepius slowly faded, but the deep human longing they served did not disappear. Instead, it found new forms. People began to seek healing dreams at the shrines of Christian saints, sleeping near holy relics and tombs in hope of a curing vision. The practice of sacred sleep, of going to a holy place to dream a cure, continued under different names and different faiths. The gods changed. The rituals changed, but the underlying act remained the same. The thread of the dreaming cure was not cut by the end of the temples. It was simply rewoven into a new world. At certain Christian shrines, the tradition of incubation continued for centuries, sometimes in places that had once been pagan healing sites. Saints associated with medicine became the new dream healers. appearing to sleepers in their visions much as Asclepius once had. Pilgrims would travel, pray, and sleep in sacred precincts, hoping to wake restored. The continuity is striking. The same underlying structure, the journey, the holy place, the sacred sleep, the healing dream, the morning interpretation, persisted across the great change from one religion to another. This tells us that the practice answered something more enduring than any particular belief, a need woven into human nature itself. Why did this single idea prove so universal and so lasting? Perhaps because dreams genuinely are mysterious and powerful, and because sleep genuinely does heal. The ancients noticed, correctly, that rest restores, that the night changes how we feel, that vivid dreams can shake or soothe us. They built their temples on a foundation of real human experience, even if they explained it through gods rather than biology. The practice endured because it worked often enough, in the ways we are now beginning to understand. It was not pure fantasy. It was an intuitive grasp of truths about the healing power of sleep that science is only now fully confirming. And so, halfway through our journey, the answer to our question is taking on depth. How did the ancient world try to heal through dreams? They did it by building a complete and immersive system around the universal human experience of sleep, harnessing forces, expectation, rest, emotional processing, the easing of fear that we now recognize as genuinely powerful. But a deeper tension remains. One, the second half of tonight, will follow. If so much of the healing came from belief and rest, what does that tell us about the relationship between the mind and the body? And what might we ourselves have lost in forgetting these old, gentle ways? What just opened? The question of how mind and body speak to each other, of what we may have lost in forgetting these gentle ways, is not only a question about ancient history. You may be carrying a version of it right now. Some ache or worry that no clinic has quite reached. Something that lives in the place where the body and the feelings meet. The ancients did not separate those two. They treated the whole person, lying down to sleep with their fear and their flesh together. Notice your breath. Notice that it keeps moving, steady and unforced. The same breath that carried every dreamer through every healing night. Now, we continue. The deepest lesson of the dreaming cure may be how completely the mind and body are intertwined. The ancients did not divide a person into separate parts, a physical machine and a separate spirit. They treated the whole human being at once, knowing instinctively that fear, hope, and belief shape the flesh. Modern science is now confirming this unity in detail, tracing the pathways by which thoughts and emotions ripple through hormones, nerves, and immune cells. What the temples practiced as faith, we are rediscovering as biology. The body listens to the mind, and the mind dwells in the body. And healing flows most freely when both are tended together. There is a whole field now devoted to how the mind affects the body's defenses, studying the constant conversation between the brain and the immune system. We know that prolonged stress can weaken our ability to fight illness, while calm, connection, and hope can support it. The signals travel through chemical messengers, through the nervous system, through the rhythms of sleep. This means that a practice that reduced fear and inspired hope, as the temples did, could produce real effects on a person's physical health. The bridge between believing one will heal and actually healing is not magic. It is a network of biology we are only beginning to map. Sleep itself is now understood as one of the body's deepest repair processes. Far from being lost time, the hours of deep sleep are when much of our maintenance occurs. The brain clears away waste. Memories are sorted and stored. Tissues are repaired. Hormones are balanced. And the immune system is replenished. A person deprived of sleep falls apart in body and mind. A person granted deep, sufficient sleep is being quietly rebuilt night after night. The temples, in giving the sick the gift of profound rest, were tapping into this nightly renewal, the body's own ancient program for putting itself back together in the dark. The dreaming stage of sleep appears to play a special role in tending our emotional lives. Research suggests that during this vivid sleep, the brain reprocesses the feelings of our days within a calmer chemistry, gradually softening the emotional charge of painful memories. We often wake to find that what felt overwhelming the night before has become more bearable. This nightly emotional repair may be one of sleep's most precious functions. For ancient sufferers weighed down by the fear and sorrow of illness, the healing dream may have offered exactly this gift. It was a gentle reworking of their distress, leaving them lighter and more able to face the morning. Dreams, science has found, tend to draw upon the concerns of our waking lives. We dream about what occupies us, what we fear, what we hope for, what we cannot resolve. This is sometimes called the continuity between waking and dreaming. Consider a person who arrived at a temple consumed by their illness and their longing to be well. It is no surprise that they would dream of healing, of the God, of the cure they so desperately sought. The temple deliberately filled their waking mind with images of recovery, and the dreaming mind, faithful to its nature, returned those images transformed into a vision of being made whole. The brain holds a deep capacity for self-healing that we are still learning to understand. It can rewire itself, form new connections, and influence the body in profound ways. Practices that engage the mind, meditation, visualization, focused hope, can measurably change how we experience pain, how we manage chronic conditions, how our bodies respond to stress. The temple dream was, in a sense, an intensely vivid form of healing visualization, experienced not as a deliberate exercise, but as a living encounter with a God. The patient did not imagine healing in a detached way. They underwent it, fully, in the theater of the dreaming mind. The setting of healing matters more than we often acknowledge. Studies have shown that patients recovering in rooms with views of nature heal faster and need less pain medication than those facing blank walls. Light, quiet, beauty, and a sense of safety all support the body's recovery. The ancients chose their temple sites with exactly these qualities in mind. Springs and gardens, open air, and gentle landscapes. They surrounded the sick with calm and beauty long before any study could prove its worth. In doing so, They created conditions that we now know genuinely help the body heal. Conditions our modern, hurried places of treatment too often forget to provide. The ritual that surrounded the temple sleep was not empty ceremony. Rituals have real psychological power. They focus attention, mark a moment as significant, reduce anxiety by giving us something orderly to do, and prepare the mind for transformation. The careful sequence of purification, offering, and sleep gave the patient a structured path from their ordinary frightened state into a state of openness and hope. Modern psychology recognizes that ritual can be genuinely calming and meaningful, helping people through difficult passages. The temples wrapped their sick in ritual not to deceive them, but to carry them, step by deliberate step, toward the receptive condition in which healing becomes more possible. The confidence of the healer has measurable effects on the patient. When a caregiver communicates calm certainty, patients tend to do better, experiencing less pain and anxiety, and sometimes faster recovery. In the temples, the ultimate healer was a god, the very embodiment of divine certainty and power. No human physician could project such absolute confidence. The patient surrendered into the care of a being believed capable of raising the dead. That total trust in an all-powerful, all-compassionate healer would have unleashed the body's responses to expectation and reassurance with extraordinary force. The temples offered the most confident healer imaginable, and the body answered. Feeling that we have some control over our healing changes how illness affects us. Helplessness deepens suffering, while a sense of agency can ease it. The temple practice gave patients something to do, a journey to make, rituals to perform, a dream to seek, instructions to follow. Rather than passively waiting on an illness, they became active participants in their own recovery. This restored sense of agency is itself therapeutic, reducing the despair that often accompanies sickness. The dreaming cure did not leave people feeling powerless before their fate. It handed them a role to play, a path to walk, and in walking it, they reclaimed some measure of hope. The community of fellow sufferers at the temples offered a healing of its own. Loneliness and isolation worsen both physical and mental illness, while connection and belonging support recovery. The sick who gathered at a sanctuary like Epidaurus were surrounded by others sharing the same hope and the same fear. They were not alone. They were part of a community bound together by the search for healing. This sense of belonging, of being held within a group that understood, would have eased the isolation of illness and strengthened the spirit. The temple was not only a place of dreams but a gathering of the hopeful, and that gathering mattered. The story we tell ourselves about our suffering shapes how we experience it. When illness feels meaningless and random, it can crush the spirit. When it is woven into a meaningful story, even one of divine testing or sacred attention, it becomes more bearable. The temples gave each patient a narrative, a story in which they were seen by a god, visited in the night, and offered a path to wholeness. This reframing of suffering, from senseless affliction to meaningful journey, is something we now recognize as genuinely healing. The mind that finds meaning in its pain carries that pain more lightly, and sometimes lays a portion of it down. The expectations we hold can become self-fulfilling within the body. If we believe a treatment will work, Our bodies often respond as though it has, releasing real chemicals of relief and repair. This is among the most studied findings in modern medicine. The temples were vast machines for generating positive expectation, building belief through every sight, sound, and ritual until the patient was utterly convinced of the cure to come. When such a person dreamed of healing and woke believing themselves restored, their expectation could shift their actual physical state. Belief in the dreaming cure was not a substitute for medicine. In a real sense, belief was the medicine. Pain is not a simple signal, but an experience shaped by the brain, by attention, emotion, and meaning. The same injury can hurt more or less depending on our state of mind, our fear, our sense of safety. This is why distraction, calm, and reassurance can genuinely reduce pain. The temple environment, soothing, hopeful, and sacred, would have shifted how patients perceived their suffering. A pain framed as part of a divine healing, experienced within a place of safety and beauty, could feel very different from the same pain endured in fear and isolation. The temples changed not only the body, but the very experience of being in pain. We now understand that healing is rarely a single event, but a process the body carries out continuously. Given the right conditions, the temples did not so much cause healing as create the conditions in which the body's own restorative powers could work. Rest, calm, hope, nourishment, care, and the easing of fear. These are the soil in which recovery grows. The ancients, through long experience, learned to provide that soil with quiet completeness. They could not perform the healing themselves, any more than a gardener makes a seed grow. But they could prepare the ground beautifully, and then let the body and the dreaming mind do their quiet work. The line between the sacred and the medical was not sharp in the ancient world, and perhaps it should not be entirely sharp now. The temples healed by treating the patient as a whole being, body, mind, and spirit, never separating the physical from the meaningful. Modern medicine, for all its power, has sometimes forgotten this wholeness, treating the body as a machine to be fixed in isolation. The dreaming cure reminds us that a person who is ill is also afraid and hungry for meaning, and that tending those dimensions is not a distraction from healing but part of it. Sleep deprivation was likely common among the ill in the ancient world, as it is among the suffering today. Pain, worry, and discomfort steal sleep, and lost sleep makes everything worse, deepening pain, dimming mood, and weakening the body. A great deal of ancient suffering may have been tangled up with simple exhaustion. To finally sleep deeply, safely, and well, perhaps for the first time in weeks, could itself transform how a person felt. The temple offered, above all else, a place to truly rest. In a world without our comforts and remedies, the gift of restorative sleep alone may have been one of the most powerful medicines available. The mind's influence over the body is strongest precisely for the kinds of complaints that likely filled the temples. Conditions involving pain, fatigue, digestion, and the many ailments shaped by stress respond most strongly to belief, calm, and hope. These are also among the most common forms of human suffering across all of history. So the temples were, by their nature, well suited to help with much of what ailed the people who came to them. This is not to dismiss those ailments as imaginary. They were the kinds of real suffering most open to the gentle tools the temples offered. The decline of the temples did not mean the death of their wisdom, only its scattering. The insights they embodied, the power of rest, hope, ritual, keri, and meaning, did not vanish. They survived in the practices of later healers, in religious shrines, in folk medicine, and eventually in fragmented form. In the modern understanding of the mind's role in health, we are now, in a sense, gathering these scattered insights back together, learning again to value sleep, to respect the placebo response, to attend to the whole person. The ancient wisdom was never truly lost. It was waiting, patiently, to be remembered and understood anew. Perhaps the most humbling realization is how much the ancients achieved without any of our knowledge. They had no understanding of germs, of brain chemistry, of immune cells or sleep stages. Yet through patient observation, they built a practice that harnessed genuine forces of healing with real effectiveness. They watched what helped the sick and refined their methods across centuries. The dreaming cure was not ignorance dressed as medicine. It was a sophisticated, experience-tested response to suffering, reaching truths about mind and body that our science is only now able to explain. There is deep wisdom in what they built. The temples understood that hope is not a luxury, but a medicine. To a person facing illness, the loss of hope is its own grave danger, dimming the will to recover and deepening the body's decline. The temples flooded the sick with hope, through stories of cures, through the promise of a compassionate God, through the beauty of the place. This deliberate cultivation of hope was perhaps their greatest gift. We now know that hope genuinely supports recovery, influencing everything from immune function to the will to keep going. The ancients placed hope at the very center of healing. There is a kind of healing that comes simply from being deeply attended to, from feeling that someone cares about your suffering and is devoting themselves to your recovery. The temple patient was the focus of elaborate care, received by priests, watched over by a god, surrounded by a whole institution devoted to their healing. This concentrated attention, this feeling of mattering, of being worth such care, can itself ease suffering and support recovery. In our modern world of rushed appointments, this ancient gift of full attention is often missing. The temples offered the sick something we increasingly hunger for, the sense of being truly seen and wholeheartedly cared for. The dreaming cure worked, in part, because it engaged the imagination, and the imagination has real power over the body. To vividly imagine a thing can trigger many of the same responses as experiencing it in reality. The dream of healing was the most vivid imagination possible, lived from within as though entirely real. The brain, generating the sensation of being touched and cured by a god, would set in motion real responses of relief and repair. The temples did not ask patients merely to think about getting well. Through the dream, they had patients experience getting well, and the body followed. We are learning that the stories and beliefs of a culture can shape what its members experience, even in their bodies and their dreams. In a world where everyone believed in the healing God, where cures were celebrated and expected, the dreaming mind would naturally produce visions that fit those beliefs, and the body would respond according to shared expectation. Healing through dreams worked, in part, because an entire civilization believed it could. This is not a flaw, but a feature of how human beings function. We are deeply shaped by the beliefs we share, and those beliefs can become real forces in our flesh. We can now answer the deeper question that has been forming. What the temples teach us is that mind and body are one inseparable whole, and that healing flows from tending both together, through rest, hope, meaning, calm, and care. The ancients grasped this unity instinctively and built their entire practice upon it. The remaining facts carry a different quality, softer, less concerned with mechanism and more with what all of this means for us, lying here now, so many centuries later. For the truths the temples held were about what it means to be a creature that sleeps and dreams and hopes to be made whole. You might be feeling tired now. That's perfectly fine and perfectly natural. Breathe slowly. Feel the long rhythm of it. For thousands of years, the sick lay down exactly as you are lying now, letting the day's weight settle, letting the body grow heavy, waiting for sleep to carry them somewhere gentler. They did not have to do anything to be healed. They only had to rest and trust and let the night do its quiet work. You don't need to hold on to anything either. Let your thoughts drift like lamplight dimming in an ancient hall, softer and softer, until there is only the breath and the dark and the slow approach of sleep. We're almost there now. There is something tender in the image of the ancient sick, lying down in the dark, hoping a kind God would visit them in sleep. They were as frightened and as hopeful as we are when illness comes. Across all the centuries between us, that has not changed. We still long to be cared for, to be told that we will be well, to rest somewhere safe. And the longing itself is still here tonight, in everyone who has ever wished, drifting towards sleep, simply to wake up better. The ancients trusted sleep in a way we have nearly forgotten. To us, sleep can feel like an inconvenience, something we cut short to do more. To them, it was sacred, a doorway, a healer, a gift from the gods. Perhaps they were closer to the truth. We now know that sleep restores us in ways nothing else can. Maybe the deepest medicine the temples offered was simply this reminder that to lie down and truly rest is one of the most healing things a person can do. Imagine the Abaton at night, lined with sleeping figures, lamps lowered, the soft sound of breathing, a snake gliding silently among the couches. It was a place built entirely around rest and hope. There was nothing to do there but let go. In our restless, glowing world, such a place sounds almost impossibly peaceful. Yet you can create a little of it here, now, in this very room. A space set apart, a permission to rest, a quiet trust that the night will do its gentle work. The dream of being healed by a loving presence speaks to something ancient in us all. Long before doctors and hospitals, there was the wish for a tender figure to lean over us in our suffering and make us whole. The temples gave that wish a form and a place. And even now, when we are sick and afraid, we still ache for that presence, that reassurance, that touch. The need has not left us. It is part of being a fragile creature who longs to be cared for. The healing temples remind us that medicine has always been more than chemistry. It is also comfort, hope, attention, and meaning. The most advanced treatments work better when given with care, and the gentlest care can heal more than we expect. The ancients understood this balance instinctively. As you rest tonight, you might remember that your own healing, whatever you carry, is supported not only by remedies, but by rest, by kindness, by the simple act of being gentle with yourself. There is a quiet democracy in the dreaming cure. Rich and poor, powerful and humble, all came to the temples and all lay down to sleep in the same hope. The dream did not care for status. It came, or did not come, to anyone. In sleep, we are all the same, vulnerable, unguarded, equal. And tonight, wherever you are, whoever you are, you join that long line of sleepers stretching back across thousands of years, all of them simply hoping that rest would carry them towards something better. The practice endured not because it was perfect, but because it was kind. It met people in their fear and offered them hope. It gave the suffering somewhere to go, something to do, someone to trust. Even when it did not cure, it comforted. There is a lesson in that gentleness. Sometimes the most healing thing is not a perfect remedy, but a kind response to suffering, a place of rest, a word of hope, a sense of being held. The temples have faded, but their kindness echoes still. To sleep in order to heal is to trust the body and mind to do what we cannot consciously control. We cannot force a wound to close by willing it. We can only create the conditions and let the deeper processes work. This is a kind of surrender, a letting go of the need to control. The temples taught their patients this gentle release into sleep. Tonight, you can practice the same letting go, trusting your body to its quiet work, releasing the need to do anything but rest. The night has always been a time of healing in the human story. While we sleep, unseen, the body repairs and the mind softens the day. The ancients sensed this, and they honored the night as sacred. We can honor it too, by giving ourselves fully to it, by laying down our worries at its threshold, by trusting that the darkness is not empty but quietly working on our behalf. The same night that watched over the temple sleepers watches over you now, ready to carry you toward morning. There is comfort in knowing that the longing to heal through rest is so deeply human and so very old. You are not alone in it. Countless others, across thousands of years, have lain down exactly as you lie now, hoping the night would help. Their hopes were real, and so are yours. The continuity is itself consoling, a reminder that you belong to a vast and ancient company of the resting and the hopeful, all of you held in the same gentle dark, The dream itself remains a mystery. Even now, we can map the sleeping brain, but we cannot fully explain why we dream, or what dreams are for, or why they move us so deeply. The ancients filled that mystery with gods. We fill it with science. But the mystery itself endures. The strange nightly theatre of the mind, vivid and fleeting. Perhaps it is right that some part of sleep remains beyond our grasp. As you drift now, you enter that same ancient mystery, the dreaming dark. The temples teach us to be gentle with our own suffering. The ancients did not scold the sick or hurry them. They received them with care, gave them time, and let them rest. There is wisdom in that patience. When we are unwell, in body or in heart, we often add harshness to our pain. Impatience, self-blame, the urge to push through. Tonight, you might offer yourself instead the temple's gentleness, the permission to rest, to be cared for, to take the time that healing needs. Sleep is the great equalizer and the great restorer, asked of every living creature. The whole of nature lies down to rest, animals and humans alike, all surrendering each day to the same necessity. There is something humbling and peaceful in this shared need. You are part of the living world's nightly return to stillness. As you settle now, you join not only the ancient sleepers, but every breathing thing that rests beneath the dark, all carried by the same deep current toward renewal. What the temple sleepers sought, healing, comfort, a sense of being cared for in the night, is available to you still. In simpler form, you do not need a god to appear or a priest to interpret. You need only to rest deeply, to let the day go, to trust the night. The essence of the dreaming cure was never really the supernatural. It was rest, hope, and surrender. And those you can have. Here, now, as you let yourself sink toward the same sleep that has always healed. So, has the ancient question been answered? How did the world try to heal through dreams? It already has. In every truth we have uncovered, that rest restores, that hope helps, that the cared-for body recovers, that mind and flesh are one. The ancients knew these things in the language of gods and dreams. We know them in the language of biology. But the knowledge is the same, and it is woven into the very night you are entering now. Its gentle medicine is still yours to receive. There is a peace in laying down the need to understand everything. The temple sleepers did not analyze their healing. They simply trusted it and let it happen. Tonight, you can do the same, setting aside the questions, releasing the need to solve or know, and simply resting in the gentle dark. Not everything must be understood to be received. The night will carry you whether or not you understand how. Let that be enough. Let the not knowing become its own soft pillow, and let yourself drift. The image of the ancient temple, quiet and beautiful, lit by low lamps, filled with the breathing of the hopeful sleeping, is itself a kind of lullaby. Hold it gently as you rest. You are lying in your own sacred space tonight, a place set apart for rest and renewal. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you must do. Only this, the soft surrender into sleep, the same surrender that has comforted the suffering for thousands of years. Let the image fade as you fade, the longing to wake up better, lighter, healed, is one of the sweetest of human hope. It is the hope that brought the ancients to their temples, and it is a hope you can carry into sleep tonight. Whatever you bring with you, some ache, some worry, some weariness, you can set it gently at the threshold of the night and trust that rest will tend it. You may wake softened, eased, a little more whole. That gentle hope is enough to fall asleep upon. Across all the changes of history, sleep has remained our faithful healer. Empires rose and fell. Gods came and went. But every night, the human race lay down to rest, and every morning rose renewed. There is something steadying in that constancy. The night that holds you now is the same night that held the temple sleepers, the same dark, the same stars, the same quiet return to stillness. You are held within a rhythm older than any temple, and it asks nothing of you but to let go. The deepest gift of the dreaming cure was permission. Permission to rest, to hope, to stop struggling, to trust. So much of suffering is made heavier by the feeling that we must fight, must do, must control. The temples gave the sick permission to simply lie down and let go. Tonight, receive that same permission. You have done enough. You have carried enough. Now you may rest. There is nothing more required of you in this moment than to breathe and soften and let the night begin its gentle work. Imagine, as you drift, that you are entering one of those ancient halls of sleep. The air is cool and still. A soft light glows somewhere far off. The breathing of others, peaceful and slow, surrounds you. You lie down on a simple couch, and you are safe, and you are cared for, and there is nothing to do but sleep. Let that image hold you. You have arrived at your own temple of rest, and the night is ready to receive you. The healing the ancients sought was, in the end, a return to wholeness, a knitting back together of what suffering had broken. Sleep does this quietly, every night, mending the small tears of the day. As you rest now, trust that this gentle mending is already underway. In your body, in your mind, in the soft processing of all you have carried. You do not need to direct it. Like the temple sleepers, you need only rest. And let the deep, patient work of the night restore you toward wholeness. There is no rush now, and there never was. The temples knew that healing keeps its own slow time, that the body mends at its own pace, that the night cannot be hurried. Release any urgency. Let the slowness become a comfort. You have all the time the night will give, and that is exactly enough. Sink into the unhurried dark, the same dark that has never once failed to carry the sleeping toward morning. Let yourself be slow and soft and still. Soon there will be only the breath and the warmth and the gentle weight of sleep. The story of the temples fades now, having brought you to this quiet threshold. You carry with you only the soft truth at its heart, that rest heals, that hope helps, that you are held by a night as old as humanity itself. Let the words dissolve. Let the images blur. There is nothing left to hold, only the breath, slow and easy, and the deep, kind dark, and the nearness of sleep. And so the real answer is not in any temple, or any god, or any ancient stone. The answer is in you, in your own breath, your own rest, your own gentle surrender to the healing night. The ancients built temples to find what you already carry within you, the body's quiet power to mend in sleep. You need no temple tonight. You are the place where the dreaming cure happens now. Close your eyes. Let go. And let the oldest medicine of all carry you gently home. 100 facts ago, we stood at the gates of a temple, wondering how the ancient world could possibly have healed its sick through nothing but sleep and dreams. Now we know it was never nothing. We followed the patients through their purifying baths and their long pilgrimages, into the dim halls where snakes glided among the couches and the god was said to come in the night. We watched the Ayamata tablets record their cures, and then we watched modern science quietly explain them, through rest and hope, through the easing of fear, through the deep unity of mind and body. What began as a story about gods became a story about ourselves. The ancient rituals of dream incubation were never really about the gods. They were about the body's own power to heal in sleep, given hope, rest, and care. Tonight, you carry that quiet knowledge with you, into the same dark the ancients trusted. Perhaps this gentle journey through the temples of sleep brought you some comfort, a small sense of being cared for in the dark, a quiet like. Subscribe or share helps another weary mind find this same resting place. One quiet tap, one peaceful night at a time. Somewhere tonight, in a ruined temple beneath the same stars. The old stones are still standing in the dark, holding the memory of every sleeper who ever lay down in hope. Not waiting, not striving, just resting in the quiet they were built for. The way your body is resting now. Let your entire being dissolve into that stillness, the deep peace of a place made only for rest. You don't need to seek the cure the ancients sought. It is already happening in you, in the simple surrender of sleep. You can allow these thoughts to settle now, like lamplight sinking low in an ancient hall until only the soft dark remains. Let your body grow heavy with the rest it has been waiting for. Sleep carries you into the place the temples only pointed toward, where healing needs no instruction from you at all. The Dream Science for Sleep playlist has spent many quiet hours in this territory, the place where the sleeping mind and the longing to be whole meet. The next hour follows the part of tonight's question that this one didn't have time to finish. What the dreaming mind is truly doing while it heals us. That hour is waiting whenever you are ready. But if your eyes are closed, stay there. Rest well, weary one. The oldest medicine has already begun its quiet work, where science becomes the softest place to rest. Good night.